When I was young, my family was involved in the tofu shop, with partners. My family spent a lot of time there. They spent more time in the shop than they did at home. My mom, when I was in my teenage years, she would always be there in the evening closing up. I would go down and help her close the shop. When my brothers were younger, they were working there making tofu, making rice cakes. Did I ever want to help at the store? No, it was a duty, and I never wanted to help. I never really, it was just a duty, just like you have to go and help. I was always thought to do something else. At least I planned to do something else. The process of making tofu starts with soaking soybeans until they're soft enough to grind. Then you would grind the soybeans to get a pulp out of it. So soy milk in the pulp is a slurry. And then you have to separate the slurry to pulp and soy milk. And the soy milk is your basis for everything else. Whether it be soy milk, tofu pudding, tofu. The better the soy milk, the better the other products. The rice cakes were the most challenging because there was a consistency and a flavor and everything that had to be matched to how it was before. Even my mother didn't really understand the recipes. They only knew a cup of this, a spoon of that. I took what they said and I compared it to what I saw in YouTube videos. I was experimenting in the kitchen for months and I pieced it back together, at least the science behind it. The recipe had to live up to at least my memory. Yeah, I'm the fifth brother. Number three brother passed away when I was about 5 years old. There was always this impression on me by my family that, watch out, be afraid of the world and stay close. Or at least that's what my mom wished. That was always in the back of my head, not to go too far. That was until Moscow. I wanted to be a photographer. That was my first love, my first passion. But because of people talking me out of doing it, I wound up going through all these other careers, mechanical engineering to architecture, space planning, interior design. I left that job and I decided I was gonna play in bands. So I wound up getting a job at a music store selling musical equipment. Obviously, there was no money in bands. You'd have to be really lucky to make any money in music or very talented. I wasn't neither lucky or talented. I went to classes at FIT for photography. It was during that time I met this kid that wound up in Moscow, started a career in photography there. He said, well, I could represent you there. 2 weeks turned into a month turned into 3 months, 3 months turned into 6 months, 6 months turned into almost 10 years in Moscow doing photography. Working today at ISO Studio, and look who's here. Not knowing when the next job was not a way to run a life, especially with a nervous wife, a newborn child, and I didn't like it either, didn't know if we were to make rent or not. There was a little bit of nationalism going on, and I felt it wasn't a great place to raise a child. I was like, I'm coming back to New York. Going to Moscow was finally sort of living my life for me. And it really kind of changed the trajectory of my life. It's in Moscow where I met my wife, had my first child, and it brought me full circle back to here. Without it, even the store wouldn't exist. I didn't come back to New York to do family business. I came back to New York to continue doing photography. I realized how difficult it was to restart a career in probably the toughest market in the world. The family business had been slowly petering out. My brothers didn't want to do it anymore. My brothers began to close the business. Childhood memories, all my memories came rushing in. I was like, I'm going to miss certain things, you know, and certain foods. The thought of like not eating white rice cake forever. After the store closed, a nonprofit organization had approached me. They want to help me continue the business or help someone continue the business. I volunteered to do so because I wanted the legacy of the store to continue. Finally, there were people who understood that it needed to be revamped. I realized that the employees, they were aging out. I realized that I had to do almost all the work, call all the shots and do it myself. The curd in there is about probably 180 degrees. Super hot. At that point in time, I had no other ideas about making a living. I succumbed to the idea to restart the family business and do it to support my family. I still had all the old ideas because I couldn't figure out what was the path. You know, tofu, yes, of course. Tofu pudding, sure. Soy milk, sure. You know, rice cakes, sure. Those were the main things that I remembered. But where's the focus? I searched online for new tofu machines, and the only place that had an English website was this company in Taiwan. So I was like, I'm gonna go there. And I wound up going there with my brother. And when we first went, they asked us what toppings to put on the tofu pudding. Me and my brother were like, no toppings, we just want served with it. Factory employee was like, come on, you guys here, try something new. I said, okay, we'll try it. The moment we sat down and started eating it, it's like a light bulb went on. This is the direction we go in. This is what we do. This tofu business was never an outlet because it was my family's business, you know. I went back to starting playing. I was no longer pressured to perform a certain way, look a certain way, and I can actually say that I play better than I've ever played. The older I get, the more I feel like the more I'm me. I think it's this Frank Sinatra song. I did it my way. Growing up, being the youngest in the family, I was always doing what other people expected of me, wanted of me, thought I should do. In music and photography, this business right now is how I wanted to be.